Well, hello, La Sapienza. I was super happy to be with you last Friday and to share with you quite a bit of material actually on air operations. We talked about the regulatory environment. We talked about Airbus, Boeing differences. We talked about dispatch, all the challenges that are present from both a systemic long-term view of fleet planning all the way to present day issues that happen with weather, maintenance, crews, and all those certain things in aviation. So it was a lot of information. I know that some of you did an amazing job. Most of you really did a great job of talking and speaking up and sharing your thoughts. We did run out of time at the very end, and I always like to leave any type of lecture or discussion with a talk about the future. Many of you are at the beginnings of your career, which is awesome. And you're going to be in aviation potentially for 30, 40 plus years, right? And you're going to see incredible things in your career. And I want to just kind of give you a flavor for what is coming up, perhaps in the short term, near term, 5 to 10 year horizon, and just for you to have some thinking about that. I'm calling this module the future. It should take not too long, but I just wanted to at least share my thoughts with you on it. You will see a picture there on the bottom. Most of you probably have no idea what this is, but this is a picture from a movie called Back to the Future. And Back to the Future came out in 1985, and it was an incredible movie about time travel. And I was 7 years old when it came out, but it blew my mind. Just the idea that you could go back in time and a car could, make you go back in time. And I would highly recommend if you're looking for a really good, like I suppose it's a vintage movie at this point. But if you're looking for something to watch sometime, Back to the Future is amazing. There was a sequel, part two and part three. Cozy, cozy. But the original is absolutely amazing. So with that being said, here we go. So, like I said, the future, right? Take a look at this picture. And what this picture is trying to tell you is that the future is data, okay? There's thousands and thousands of data points that are constantly coming in on an aircraft, especially the engine, okay? The data is actually live streamed from the engine down to the ground for real-time assessment. We have flight controls like the flaps, which are on the back of the wing, and we have the leading edge devices here. We have lighting systems, the internal workings of the aircraft, cargo, all these things. And in my view, the future is in data and being able to be proactive and predictive in our approaches, not just with data, but with reporting and all these other types of programs. So the big question that everybody asks, it's on podcasts, it's at lectures, it's at conferences, is AI going to replace us in aviation? It's the big question. And I like to approach this from the standpoint of let's compare the space shuttle program and let's compare aviation. So on the left side of your screen here, we see the space shuttle. And the space shuttle was, for the most part, very successful. They did have two accidents. So they had about 128 launches and two accidents in 128. So statistically, it actually wasn't that safe, but given what they were doing, it was actually very safe. And we think of the space shuttle program as, I mean, think about that. They're going up into space and there's no air, and it's a very unforgiving environment we hear a lot of the time. But if you think about it, AI and really not AI, but automation in general, the space shuttle was designed from the very beginning, before it even flew. They said the space shuttle is going to have autonomy the entire way. Takeoff, autonomous. In-flight, autonomous. Re-entry back into the Earth, autonomous. The only thing that wasn't automated, ironically, was the landing. The pilots actually had to do the landing themselves. But because of that, we say that space is a bounded environment. A bounded environment means we know the temperature, we know all sorts of parameters about space. It looks like it's a really difficult thing to overcome, but actually it's not too difficult because everything is predictable. Okay, so contrast that with commercial aviation. And this is a view right here of a helicopter going over, I think it's New York City. And take a look at all the possible variables that could be encountered here. We could have birds, we could have drones, we could have helicopter traffic, air traffic. This is a three-dimensional environment where we're constantly we're constantly being barraged with different kinds of threats and different things out there. And because of that, aviation has always been designed from the beginning, not as an automated environment, but as a human-centric design, all right? Letting the human make decisions. Um, and automation introduction in aviation has always been incremental. So we're going to add this piece of technology. We're going to test it. We're going to see if it works. We're going to add this other layer, but we're not going to do it all at the same time. And we're going to layer new technology on old technology. And that's called an incremental approach. Okay. And very importantly is all of our regulations, both EASA, the FAA, are predicated on manual control, and that the pilots have to be trained, and all of our regulations talk about the pilots being in the loop, not on the loop, but in the loop. So because of that, because of all these reasons, I really believe that that AI and having single pilot or no pilot operations, I believe it at the present time it's basically impossible. Maybe decades down the road, the regulatory environment and design and things like that would allow for it. But for the time being, it appears that the space shuttle program, designed for autonomy, designed for this, commercial aviation is not. That's my opinion. You might beg to differ, but that's how I feel about the topic. This is an incredible view of what it looks like using artificial intelligence with computer vision at an airport. And let me talk to you about what this is doing here. We have different boxes, for lack of a better term, boxes that are around objects that are relating to making the aircraft push back. And computer vision is trained on what all of these are. So, for example, this is the bag loader, okay, and also called a belt loader. The cars, the people walking in and out of the aircraft. And so the computer vision can recognize all of these different things that are happening around the airplane. That is not AI, okay? That's called computer vision or synthetic vision. But what happens is they can record thousands and thousands of flights, maybe millions, and they can put all of that data into an AI algorithm and model, and they can predict when that airplane is going to push back, when the aircraft is going to be finished with the baggage, finished with the boarding, finished with the fuel. Where's the fuel? There's the fueler right there. And my understanding is they can predict within 30 seconds when that's going to push back. Okay? So they might still be an hour away from departing, but you can tell by the choreography and what's happening around the airplane an hour later when that's going to be ready to go. And that's huge because then they can predict, congestion and they can try to mitigate or they can try to prevent ramp and taxiway congestion, runway congestion, things like that as well too. So this is really, really cool. If you want to if you want to make a lot of money, honestly, in aviation, you can be on the leading edge of designing artificial intelligence and computer vision to capture operational things like this. All right, it's really, really at the cutting edge right now of aviation. This is another example of what's happening with computer vision at London Heathrow Airport. I go there all the time. And they're using AI to basically help with prediction of trajectories. The air traffic controller is looking out of the tower cab, but the flight number is projected on the glass. So as you can see here, as the airplane is taxiing, you can actually see what the flight number is. And this is remarkable. This is amazing. Because it used to be that the controller would have to look down and then look up, down, and up to see the flight number. But now they can be heads up the whole time and be looking at the flight number associated with the actual flight. Really, really remarkable. Really remarkable. Much safer, actually. Here's another example, actually a lot of examples, of how AI and computer vision are being used in aviation. We already talked about this idea up here about looking at, when different things are happening to the airplane and trying to predict when the airplane is going to be ready to depart. I actually showed this in our previous talk about passengers waiting in the airport and trying to predict when security lines might be bigger for staffing and things like that. Really, really cool stuff. All right. You're probably on camera. When you see the cameras, you think they're security cameras, but now they're like AI cameras, right? It's pretty remarkable. Down here, in wintertime, often we have to get de-iced. So there's ice on the wings, and they spray the wing with a fluid that gets the ice off the wing. And so this is happening here, anti-icing coating in progress, and they put a blue box around it. And then they have a green box when it's complete, anti-ice coating complete. So this used to be done by a human being, like outside watching, but now it doesn't have to be. It can be done by a camera and computer vision. By the way, you see a number here, 98.9, 97.2. That means how confident the model is predicting what's happening. So 97% sure that the de-icing is complete down there. And then finally, in this box, we have FOD, or foreign object, on the taxiway or on the runway. And this looks like glass or debris. So the cool part is that it can actually tell you what's actually on the ground and can identify that it's glass. Really remarkable. Again, this used to be that you'd have to drive out, you'd have to look at it yourself and clean it up, but we can use AI to detect that from a distance. This is a really cool example of using AI to detect visual traffic. And what you're going to see here is different objects passing by the camera. So you're going to see like drones, birds, different things. And what the AI does is it will actually detect what type of object that is. And again, there's percentages on each one. So I don't know if you can see, but 92, 97, 95, that's the confidence level that it is of detecting each one of those. So I'll play the video right now. It's very short and there's no audio to it. So we have some hot air balloons, birds, looks like a drone, another drone, low visibility, parachute. So as you can imagine, this is tremendously useful in aviation because the computer helps to augment the pilot's situational awareness. All right, finally here, you should be aware that in the future, we're going to have a big regulatory issues on AI between the EU, your regulatory framework, and the US. In the EU, they're basically heavily regulating what's happening with AI. the EU AI Act, and I'm sure that you've probably heard of that. It's kind of like the GDPR for AI. Um, there's a funny statement or a funny phrase, which is Europe regulates and the United States innovates. So debatable, I know, but it's kind of funny. So, the Europeans are really approaching it from a risk-based perspective. I'm not going to go into that right now. But the U.S. is still kind of like the Wild West, all right? Silicon Valley and all these people. I don't know if you're aware. A lot of people like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and the big tech companies, they donated a lot of money to the Trump campaign and to the inauguration and things like that. So basically, it seems to me that there's really not going to be a lot of regulations when it comes to AI, which is a big deal because in aviation, we're heavily regulated, right? And so on one hand, we have the tech industry really not regulated in the US, and then aviation heavily regulated. So I'm not sure how those two are gonna match up. In my opinion, I personally, this is just me, I kind of like the European perspective more. I like how it's a risk-based approach. It does have some shortcomings, but if you have not read this yet, I would highly recommend that you Google Artificial Intelligence Roadmap 2.0 about AI in aviation because it's a tremendous document. It's very easy to read and very user-friendly. All right, and then finally, some resources to help you in your career, all right, moving forward. Many different organizations have student memberships. The Royal Aeronautical Society, you don't have to be British, you can be Italian, you can be American like me, and they have a student tier membership. The AIAA has a beautiful magazine, a beautiful website, and then the Resilience Engineering Association, or REA, which many of us are a part of as well too, is a wonderful organization for you to be learning about things. A lot of these have scholarships, they have conferences, newsletters, articles for you to increase your awareness about aviation. All these podcasts are free. This one is really nice, the Av Talk. It comes out every Friday, and it basically covers everything aviation related. So if there was one that I would recommend, it would be Av Talk. Right there. And then these are just some of my favorite books that I've read lately. If you're going to be, if you're like me and you had difficulty with statistics, this book is awesome, The Art of Statistics, and it really helps for you to understand, like, when do I do this test, when do I do that test, how does it all fit together. This book is incredible. The Singularity is Nearer. It just came out like a month or two ago. But it's talking about humans merging with AI, right? Like a nanotechnology in your brain. So it's not science fiction. I don't think. But anyway, a lot of AI books here. This book called The Foundations of Safety Science. I think I have it right here. I didn't plan this, but it's right here. It's very important. This book is absolute. If you're going to be in not just aviation, but just any kind of safety job, this book is huge. Great. 2019 it came out. And then finally, I have my contact information. My email address that I left you with earlier, james.e.norman@outlook.com. I have a couple websites that I created. And then some of you have already found me on LinkedIn, so I thank you very much for finding that. It was my pleasure to talk to you. I'm happy to help you in any way in your career. Professor Patriarca is a dear friend of mine. I would do anything to help him and his students. So I hope that this was helpful for you, and stay tuned to my video from Greece. Take care. Bye-bye. Hello, La Sapienza students. How are you? I told you that I was coming to Greece and Athens, and here I am, pre-flighting on the A330 behind me. It's a beautiful day. I just wanted to say hello, and I hope everybody's well, and thank you so much for allowing me to be a guest speaker with your group. Ciao!